We are recording the interview of Bill Peterson. This interview is being conducted by David Barry and Jeremy Tack from the Wright State Veteran Voices Project. This interview is being recorded at the Holiday Inn in Dayton, Ohio. It is 5:30 p.m. on September 21st, 2017. Why don't we begin with where and when were you born?
October 15th, 1943, in Altoona, Pennsylvania.
And who were your parents and what were their occupation?
William R. Peterson, I'm junior, and my mother, Bonnie, and she was a homemaker and a mother. And my dad he started out, they were so poor, he ended up in an orphanage for the poor, thank you, in Elizabethtown, Pennsylvania. And he came out of there with a job of carrying bathtubs from a train to a truck to a warehouse. But his occupation ultimately was national sales manager for American Standard Corporation. So he went from virtually nothing to the top of his company's career path, and that's what they were doing at the time. And then we lived in Pennsylvania until I was a senior in high school, and we moved to Louisville, Kentucky.
Did you have any siblings?
No, I had a sister who died at 2 weeks, age of 2 weeks.
Sorry to hear that.
I had to tell my dad. Tough. She died in the hospital, and the doctor called me and said, "Is this Bill Peterson?" I said, "Yes, it is." I had just gotten back from football practice, and he said, "Well, I hate to tell you this, but Susan died a few minutes ago." I said, "No, that can't be. I mean, I just talked to my dad. He's on his way home. He just saw her." "Your dad?" I said, "Yeah, Junior." So he came home, and he was all happy because she was fine, but she wasn't really fine. He just didn't have the medical understanding that she had something that was never going to recover. So I made him a wonderful Kentucky bourbon, and I made one for me, and that's the first time I ever had a drink. He cried, and he went to the hospital, and that was that.
What were you doing before you joined the military?
I was a student at Miami University, Oxford, Ohio, and my major was government and psychology. The two fit together so nicely.
And did you were you getting your undergrad there?
Yes, I got a BA in government from Miami, and I met my wife there, and she was a French and English major, and I graduated in 4 years. She did 2 majors in 3 years with a 6 or 7, 3.6.
Wow.
Yeah, I was creeping out of the tubes, but she's a bright lady.
And in which branch of service did you enlist or join?
I decided I wanted to be in the military, and this is because Vietnam was shaping up, but it wasn't active yet. And then Tonkin Gulf happened, and a bunch of us were sitting on the couch watching a ball game, and we all jumped up and ran uptown to the recruiter and said, "Sign us up." And he said, "We're not working today. I'm just in the office." He said, "By the way, come back on Monday when you're sober." So by Monday, I had decided I was going to join the Navy, and the Navy said, "No, you can't, because we're all on scholarship here. You have to be selected in high school, and then you come to Miami, and you're part of a program. It's kind of a scholarship." So I didn't want to be in the Army. A lot of my family has been in the Army, but I looked at the Air Force, and they had ROTC there, and I could sign up immediately, and I thought, this is meant to be, I'll do it. So I signed up and became an ROTC graduate of Miami. Graduated and was commissioned the same day, and my wife and I were married within 10 days, and I also volunteered for Vietnam in writing at graduation because I wanted to go. And that was the 29th of August, 1965.
So you just got out of you just graduated school, you just signed up for the Air Force. How was it leaving Miami? How you had to go to basic training still, correct?
Well, no, in the Air Force ROTC program at Miami at that time, we had basic during the course of our school year
Oh, okay.
in the summer. So, in my case, I went to Altus Air Force Base in Western Oklahoma, which is adjacent to Camp or Fort Sill, and it was hot. God, it was unbearable. But that's where we had our basic, and because you were already on the track to being an officer, so you don't go to other places where they do that thing. So anyway, we graduated, and then my first assignment came up about 2 months later, and in that meantime, I sold wonderful men's clothing at one of the fine school shops there on Main Street in Oxford, button-down blue collars and all that, jazz. So, waiting to go. And my wife and I were married on September 8th, so there's graduation, commissioning, and a wedding. And we're waiting for that time when we're going to actually go to work in the Air Force. And the only place we could find to live was a renovated garage. And I'm making money, actually. What I really did was washed windows. And so I washed windows, make enough money to pay the rent and get a little food. And then we went down into the Air Force to Cape Charles, Virginia. That was my first assignment.
So up to this point, how was it? How did you feel being in the military?
I loved it. Absolutely loved it. I liked it from the get-go, before I was even in. We have family history, it goes back to the Revolutionary War. My wife's ancestors signed the Declaration of Independence, and they signed the Constitution. George Reed of Delaware is her direct lineal antecedent, I guess it's called. And then her other one was Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Delaware, and another one was he was whether it was Bishop or Archbishop of the Anglican Church in Delaware. And my people came over in 1686 from Scotland, and we basically went to what is now Vermont and did farming and keeping Indians off. But then everything came together, when we met. Jean and I. My wife's name is Jean Elaine Peterson. Anyway, so we went down to Cape Charles, and she liked the Air Force as much as I did. We were perfect for it, and everything seemed to be family. I mean, the people were family. The lieutenants, we were like a group of lieutenants that came in, and we all had sponsors, so everybody was looking out for everybody. John McCain, Senator McCain, crashed his first airplane just beyond my backyard. He, I don't know what he did or didn't do, but anyway, he punched out and he's floating down his parachute, and we were cooking out in my backyard, and we saw the chute, saw the plane go down, and that's the Atlantic Ocean there. And on the other side of that narrow strip of land is Chesapeake Bay. So he went into the ocean, I'm not quite sure where we got a bearing, don't know how far, called up the sheriff because we didn't have 911. We didn't know if the emergency people, they had boats to get out there. We had a lot of watermen that they could help. Anyway, they saved his life, and that was John Wayne. John Wayne, yeah, right. But the senator, has a long history of crashing airplanes. 3 of them. Okay, so we were there, and our mission was a very interesting mission. It was providing air defense for the nation in the Air Force. That's called the Air Defense Command. It is a part of NORAD, North American Air Defense Command. And you have to understand that in 1965, the threat of the bombers coming from the Soviet Union and attacking the United States was very real. The Cold War was going hot and heavy. And our job was very real. We went to some very special schools to learn how to use the equipment. We had absolutely good, sometimes great intelligence. And we were all highly motivated. You know, if they're going to attack us, it's going to be with nuclear weapons. We're going to die. So we're going to take them with us. You know, but better yet, we're going to prevent the airplane from getting here to drop the bomb. And so we were highly motivated to do that. And we had at that unit at Cape Charles Air Force Station, we had an old manual system, a little sweep going around, the radar sweep, you know, and that was gone. And in came a new thing called Backup Intercept Control 2, Roman 2. This thing was a high-speed computer. It had networked radar, so we didn't have our radar. We had our radar and radars like in New Jersey and Pennsylvania and Virginia, and they're all tied together in our computers, spinning all that stuff out onto consoles, and we have like 6 consoles here. And at that time, I was a weapons controller, which means I get the joy of controlling fighter pilots and pairing them with an incoming bomber and helping them shoot that bomber down. Now, with Buick, you hit some buttons, you have a technician sitting on your side. He's been to school, he knows his stuff, and he is as good as it gets, and so are you. And you see these guys coming in, the senior director pairs you with that bomber, and you tell the tech, okay, I've got 3 bombers coming in, I've got 5 fighters, I'm going to take him against him against him, and we do a strategic thing right there, you know, which fighters by call sign are going to go against which bombers. And with buttons on that console, you send an electronic message digitally into the cockpit of that fighter 200 miles away, and it guides his airplane, and then it creates a lock-on so that his radar now takes control of the intercept because now he's locked on. And when he gets that, he says, Judy, that means I'm locked on. And then he takes that guy and shoots him down, and then he goes to the next one. And you tell him which one is next and get him over there. And we were using the F-106, which is a great airplane for its day. Delta wing, high speed, supersonic, just great. But my computer talks to that computer, and I tell my computer what to do. It tells them, and then the pilot, when he gets real close, you know, we're talking 2 to 5 miles, he can launch his missiles, and away goes the bad guy. That was Buick 2. We'll get back to that later.
Okay.
A couple of questions down the road.
All right. So obviously that deals a lot of specialty training. Was there any training that kind of sticks out as more beneficial than the other?
Well, when you talk about defense, air defense, you're talking about a thing called defense in depth. The idea is to shoot them down as far away as possible. So this is an area we're responsible. Remember I said we go from the ocean to Pittsburgh, to New Orleans, to Cuba, and back. That's a big area. Okay, so you have to have a weapon that does an area defense. And that we did with the Bomarc missile and BOMARC. And that's a missile that was made by Boeing. It was supersonic, Mach 2.7, I think. And it was nuclear, a nuclear warhead. So we would launch that from one site, which is over at Langley Air Force Base. So once again, I hit some buttons, sends a command. This building is a concrete building, splits like that, and it's called missile erection. And the missile stands up, and then it launches. And at 2.5 times the speed of sound, it's going to that target. Now, if there's one bomber, that's great. But sometimes they fly in cells of 2 or 3 or 4, and you can take them all out with a nuke. And that's what we did. So we had Bomarc training at Gunter Air Force Base in Montgomery, Alabama. And then we had the Buick 2 training down in Tyndall Air Force Base in the Panhandle of Florida. So we had that. And then later, as we got up to Buick 3, we had more training, and the Bomarc was advanced again, so we had more of that. And that's how that works. And then if you've missed with your missile, and if you've missed with your airplane, then the Army is sitting there with Nike as a point defense. That's the last ditch effort, you know. So that's how we work.
I'm not. Can you describe what Nike is?
Nike is it's a Greek god, Nike, Nike sneakers, you know, all that. Well, Nike was the name that they chose for that particular missile. There's Ajax, another Greek god. There's a couple other ones. Nike Hercules was another one. And Nike Herc was a modification to the basic Nike. And that was Army stuff, but we controlled it because we had responsibility for the air defense, total air defense. And we had Navy, if we needed Navy fighters, one command to the Navy, and if it's World War III against the United States, we get the Navy birds, we in the Air Force. Navy flies them, but we direct them. Didn't have to go that far.
How did that feel to have that much power at your fingertips?
Well, I guess I was 21 years old or something like that. Yeah, and we had 28 nuclear missiles and 3 of our own fighter squadrons of jet fighters. Yeah, that felt great. That was wonderful. You ever see Top Gun?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it is.
So how was it adapting to this style of military where you have immense responsibilities and obviously more than the average officer in the Air Force?
Well, every Air Force job has its own levels of responsibility, and I mean, and they're all important, every one of them. The answer to your question is we have 2 things. We have absolute discipline. It's not my war, it's not my missiles, it's not my fighters, and I have a boss, and when he says jump, you do, and he's there for a reason. He has earned that job, and he's good at it, and he has had all his training, and when he tells you to do something, it's because it needs to be done now, and so it's very easy. Training is very, there's no Mickey Mouse stuff. Training is for a reason, and you can't make it without it. And when you are too busy or too scared or whatever in a situation, training kicks in, and then you're not thinking about it. You're reacting to a situation, and you got the right answer right there, and it works.
So during this time, are there any memories or experiences that stick out?
Well, when I was a second lieutenant, you talk about. Well, yeah, there's a bunch of them, but okay, this is fun. We all get a sponsor when you come in, and the sponsor's married. If you're married, he's married, so his wife is looking out for your wife and helping you with school and kids and all that stuff, and he is handing me my career. He's saying, this is what we got to do, and I'm the sponsor, and I'll tell you the mistakes I made so you don't make them, and getting you through it and helping you out a lot. And then you're off duty. And what do you do? I mean, in the NORAD business, generally, most of these locations are remote, semi-remote, or isolated. Those are official technical terms. So, if you're isolated, you have 4 Eskimos. If you're remote, you have 9 Eskimos, So, and semi-remote, you might have 15 Eskimos, So that's the way it works. So after duty hours, and you're done, and so forth, you have some kind of fun out there in your life. Where I was hunting and fishing on the eastern shore of Maryland. Well, that was Virginia, but I live in the Maryland part now. But the eastern shore is surrounded by the Atlantic Ocean and the Chesapeake Bay, so the fishing is outstanding. The hunting is great. One night, my mentor and I were going to go fish, and we went down to the absolute end of the Chesapeake Bay where it goes into the Atlantic Ocean. And it's called Kiptapeak, and we're standing there on a sandy beach, and we're fishing, and whether it was the tide or the whatever, nothing was happening. And I was given the additional duty of unit intelligence officer, so which I'm passionate about intelligence. So Bill, my mentor, he and I are fishing, and it's the pits, so let's do something else. What else are we going to do, He said, let's check out this Bay Bridge tunnel. Now, the thing is like 26 miles long, and it's 2 bridges and 2 tunnels linked by causeways, and we're at the north end. and on the other side is Virginia Beach and Norfolk and so on. And I just want to check it out. So we climb over the fence, the security fence. We break in. We're going down the highway. It is about 2 in the morning, and we had helped ourselves to some Tullamore Dew, some of the finest scotch you've ever passed your lips. And so we're walking down the highway, and at that point, at that place, it was a 2-lane road, and you can see the headlights. In this particular case, that turned out to be a cop. Now, the guys who own this bridge, privately owned, $250 million, $1965. They put up $200 million of their money and borrowed $50 million. So they're serious about security. And so we're walking, we see them coming through, we dive off down this bank, and you go probably on the order of 50, 60 feet down to the bottom, and that's where the water is. So we dive, no big deal. And in the process, I lost my glasses. Oh no. And the cop goes by, a state trooper, and we get up. Now we're going back, and we're trying to find our way back. One looking over our shoulder, is he coming back? And I don't know where my glasses are. Now I made note, pretty much of where we were when we dove off the highway. But this is bad news. So we get down there, and in the meantime, I sprained my ankle climbing up over that fence again. Now I've got a really serious sprained ankle. So the next morning I got to go to work. Next morning, Jesus, it's already about 3:30, 4 in the morning. And we're supposed to be at work at about 7, Okay. So I go in there, and I'm limping because I got this ankle that doesn't work. And Bill, he's worried because I got to run fighters at 10 o'clock. And we don't know what's going to go on, but I don't have my glasses. And now I'm kind of hurting. So I said, look, here's what we're going to do. I called up the commander's office, and I talked to the first sergeant. I said, is the commander in? No, he's gone for the day. He won't be back till he'll be back sometime late tomorrow. How about his vehicle? Oh, it's here. I said, great, I need it. Okay. Yes, sir. So Bill and I said, come with me, Bill. Now, he's a first lieutenant. I'm a brand new second lieutenant. Come with me, Bill. So we go over there, and I'm driving. I drive over there, and we get to the headquarters of the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel. And we go in. He said, what are we doing? I said, just follow my lead. So we go in there, and I introduce myself. Actually, Bill had just made captain, so he was Captain Wallace. I blew your name, Bill. Captain Wallace. And I'm Second Lieutenant Peterson. And I said, listen, we have a question to ask you. We are affiliated with the radar site over here, and our job is to defend America in the event of attack. But you understand an attack will happen in ways other than just airplanes. They will have special forces, commandos. Have you thought about what happens to your bridge when they blow it up? $250 million blowing up. Could they do that? Oh, yes, sir. And by the way, we're having an exercise in about a week. Strategic Air Command will fly bombers, and we've got electronic birds out there radiating. This is a big exercise. The whole East Coast is involved. And one of the things that's in the script, I've seen this, is to blow up the bridge. Now, we want to make sure it's realistic, and we want to make sure that we do it the right way with your permission. All I want to do is just check it out today so we know that what we're doing is something that's real. Would they come from the north or the south, east or the west? Would they go to Virginia Beach and go this way, or would they come down? He said, yeah, I understand. Sure. And so he gives us a police escort. I said, this looks like a good place. Let's check this out. And we're looking around, yeah. And they would come this way and then do this. Oh, yeah. And there would be a rubber boat over here. And there's my glasses, which was the mission. Got those glasses, make it back to the ops center in time for my 10 o'clock flight. Good day in the Air Force. No, we had other good days. The McCain day, that was a good day.
So, how long did you work for the Air Defense Command?
Well, when I applied for Vietnam, I volunteered for Vietnam. The rules in the Air Force at that time was you had to be first lieutenant. You had to have 18 months in service. So I couldn't go as a second lieutenant. But just before I hit first lieutenant, I got my orders to go. So that's probably about 17 months after I'd been there. And we're looking, see, my daughter was born on the 17th of February, 1967. And I got to go about the 1st of April. So she was just a little kid. And we left Cape Charles. We drove to Columbus, where she lived, or got her an apartment. And so my wife Jean and daughter Kristen were there, and her parents lived across town in Upper Arlington. And he was a doctor. He had his own practice, and he taught medicine at Ohio State. And her uncle was a lawyer, Ohio State graduated lawyer, law school. So she was in good hands. And then I had to go to Vietnam. So we're watching it on the news, and I'm excited. I wanted this, and I got it. And she's kind of terrified. And I'm not thinking about what could happen, the bad stuff. I'm just thinking about, this is my duty. I want to do it. See it. So, like I said earlier, I got this flight to Los Angeles. Got on the airplane. I'm in civvies. And this guy sits down next to me. And we're having a conversation on the way to Los Angeles. And turns out he is about a 23-year-old liquor salesman for somebody like, let's say, Jim Beam or whatever. And he apparently has a very big territory because he's on his way once again to L.A. And he knows all about L.A. I mean, he really knows it. I don't know anything about L.A. So on the way, he's telling me about how he's got his favorite hotel and he's got this and that. So we get there, and he says, we're going to share a cab. We're going to go to his hotel. Might as well. As long as I get to where I'm supposed to be to go to work on Monday morning, I'm in good shape, So we check in at the desk. Now, you have to understand, this is 1965. I'm a second lieutenant. My total income, as I recall, is about $220. All right. I go up to the room, and I go in, and there's like this gigantic living room. And then there's like some steps that go up. And then there's big windows looking over Los Angeles. And lights, and it's beautiful, and there's a bar, and I'm thinking, excuse me, this ain't no Holiday Inn, And I talked to him. He wanted to go to dinner. I think I got a problem. So I called up the front desk, and I asked them about it. And they said, and your room number? I said, yeah, units 1996 or whatever it was, And they said, well, we hope you're satisfied. That's a very important room. I said, well, yeah, it looks like an important room. Look, put the cards on the table. I don't think I can afford this. How much is this? He said something, $2,800 a night. I said, who in the hell stays here at $2,800? Well, when he's in town, it's Sammy Davis Jr.'s place. I said, well, I'll leave it like I found it. And I left there, and I went down to the Del Mar, where my uncle stayed in World War II. And, that pier that has the Ferris wheel on it. So I'm pretty close to that. And it's nice. I mean, you got the beach and all that. And then I have to report to work. And that was amazing. As I said earlier, we checked in. We had our security guaranteed, certified by the people there. That was Systems Development Corporation, which is a first-class software outfit. We had Burroughs computers that made the thing. And so what they really did is take the Buick 2 computer, modify it so it could fight the Vietnam War. So Air Defense Command gave up 2 of their Buick sites to help fight the Vietnam War. Nobody ever gives Air Defense Command any credit for fighting in Vietnam. I mean, they live in cozy NORAD and up on Cheyenne Mountain and Colorado Springs, a beautiful place. But that's what they did. They gave up a big chunk of their budget to do that, and they got us from all over the country. So when we went to work that morning, we knew each other. Or we had met, or we had been on the phone before, or we had gone to training together. So this was an amazing piece of work on the part of the Air Force to put this all together, send it over there, and nobody knew. And as I said, when we got there, it was all set up and ready to go. When we got there, they had the old canvas tent, S-48 shelter, and those old circle computer. They had the old manual systems, but they did have some decent communications. But in the meantime, they were building this new system, and they had to build a building adjacent to the command and control center that was down the top of the mountain on Monkey Mountain. This is a funny story. Now, we need a bunch of people to build a building. You're in Vietnam. You know, who are you going to get? They got Vietnamese because, you know, most of the Vietnamese men are fighting the war. So you have old people and you have young people. Neither one are trained in construction to American standards that are going to have a computer, you know, house a computer building that's controlled temperature and all that, and all the communications. I mean, you could call it Mars if you want to. I mean, it's great. So they had to do basic things. One thing that will be in my memory forever was fondly referred to as hammer school. Now, you're Vietnamese, you're poor, you're in a war zone, half your family's been shot and killed, and you're looking for work. And they say, if you can put this nail in that board, you'll get a job. So they line up all these guys on this 2x4, and there's another 2x4 with other guys, and they all have a hammer, and they all have one nail started for them. And somebody blows the whistle, and they beat the living shit out of bam, 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 trying to get this nail on the board first so they get the job. And they got bloody doing it, hitting each other by mistake, you know. But it was hammer school in Vietnam. So anyway, we had this fantastic, I mean, if you can imagine emails and everything that we have today and take for granted, we had it in 1967 in Vietnam to do the battle staff for the Rolling Thunder, Steel Tiger, and Barrel Roll in North Vietnam and Laos.
Right. That had to be an exciting place to be, just with all the high technology just being there.
Yeah, we were so high tech that we could talk to people 500 miles away, instantaneous, real time. We had all the radars tied together. There's something that I know that I could get into it, but I won't because it's absolutely still in use today in other places. But the radar we didn't have, we obtained elsewhere and put it on our scopes. So we saw every airplane in the sky from Hainan Island in the east to Burma in the west, from halfway up South Vietnam to about 30 miles inside China. And we had, the mission that we had was prevent our guys from going across the Chinese border so they don't get upset. We don't want to have a war with them too. So border warnings, we see it about to happen, they reach a zone, I, the senior director, would issue a warning, give them a code word. If I give them a call sign, if I knew their call sign, sometimes I did, sometimes I didn't. Aircraft, 73 miles north of Hanoi, heading 350 at 13,000 feet, and then I give them a code word, and then you see them turn. Okay, good one. The other thing we did, mixed emotions about this, is MiG calls. When we go north and we're going to bomb, we're going to go into their airspace, and they're going to defend it with MiGs, 15s, 17s, and 19s and 21s. There's one of those they didn't have, 15s, I guess. Anyway, they have a bunch of MiGs waiting for us. And we went in there virtually the same way every day, just almost like a route. And it was called the Alpha Day Strike. So at about 8 o'clock in the morning, about 100 of our airplanes would go north, and about maybe 40 of those would be carrying bombs. Other ones are fighting SAMs, and other ones are fighting the MiGs, and other ones are doing search and rescue. So there's a whole mixed bag of jobs to be done. Now, as we go in, when the MiGs take off, I give a warning, and bandits, bullseye, 250, 30, heading 070, Angels 20, like that. And that tells every pilot out there, he knows that language. and it tells him exactly where that MiG is, what his altitude is, what his heading is. The problem is that other people are doing it and we're on guard channel, which means that when I'm talking, somebody else is talking over me, or I'm talking over somebody else. And that gets very confusing to the receiver, because he's hearing part of my stuff and part of his stuff, that other stuff, and then you can get mixed up easily with that. And it just, sometimes it gets to the point where they don't want to hear it. But we had a capability that they never knew, our pilots never knew how good we were, because sources and methods. We had the best source and the best method, and it was ironclad. And we told our pilots something you could bet on it. The problem was getting through so they could hear it on guard channel. So they had border warnings and MiG warnings. And then the third thing that we did as an everyday job was search and rescue. We did that in the sense that the search and rescue guys were sitting like at my elbow, and then they have a C-130 aircraft, and that's Crown. And then the C-130 has a bunch of Jolly Greens, helicopters, that are going to make the actual pickup. In some cases, they've got a low bird and a high bird, so that when they're going in, the high bird is watching to see if the low bird gets shot down. So he has to go in and pick him up. Meanwhile, Crown has other assets that he can bring to bear, and that's at C-130. He's a command post, flying command post. And then the guys in my unit, they're sitting there and they can see the big picture and they can see what I'm seeing. And they know that when I tell them there's a MiG coming out that's going to interfere with the SAR, he gets a warning to those guys, by first name and middle initial. You got MiGs coming. And if we have information on SAMs, we'll give it to them. And AAA is just everywhere. And AAA is terrible. And I nearly bought the farm myself with AAA one time. Anyway, those are the three major missions, and this is 24/7. So our day starts at 7 o'clock in the morning, and we finish at 4 in the afternoon, and then the night shift comes on from 4 in the afternoon until 7 in the morning. So it's 7 days a week. So that's what we did.
How was it staying in touch with your wife and your children while you were over there?
We had U.S. mail, and that was it, with one exception. Barry Goldwater paid for telephone connections. So if you got a chance to get to a telephone and make a call to your wife, he would get it sent by some sort of radio. So your voice would come in and say, "Hi, honey," over. It said, "Hi, honey," over, and you have this romantic conversation, "I miss you," etc., and all the things the guys say to their lovely wives, and then and you've got something maybe 7 or 8 minutes, and then the next guy in line who's standing over your shoulder, hearing you say all this stuff, he's going to sit down where you sat, pick up that warm phone, and he's going to say the same stuff to his wife, over, and that was it. High speed HF radio when we got it, which was rare. Come to think of it, I don't know if I made more than 3 calls in 366 days. But letters, we write letters.
So was the 366 days, was that how long you were over there?
Average tour was supposed to be 1 year, and somehow I got an extra day. So I always bring that out, just to jab some guys, and they were there TUI for 90 days. And some other guys were there for 179, so it wasn't a PCS, and the government has to pay more money. So we all have these little games we play with days,
So what was next for you after this?
Well, I'm a big believer in volunteering. And, they say never volunteer in the military. I say always volunteer. If you've got what they need, they'll accept you. If you don't have it, you can volunteer all you want. You'll never get selected. Okay? I can name probably 300 guys now that could volunteer to be SEALs, and not one of them would make it. So you can volunteer all you want. Don't worry about it. If you're good, you'll get selected. And if you're good, you ought to go. So I volunteered for something one night. I volunteered for a lot. I was on base there, and it wasn't a base; it was a cantonment. It was an old French barracks. Is where we stayed when the French were fighting the Viet Minh. Okay, we inherited like their quarters, their barracks, and stuff like that. So I landed in Saigon. I went to the Rex Hotel, had dinner, met some guys I never met before. We're all looking for somebody to have dinner with, you know. And then we went up on the roof, gonna have some drinks and watch a movie. And it was a war movie. And, oh, that's cool. We're watching a war movie in Saigon. And just then there was an attack at Tan Son Nhut. So we've got rockets coming in, and we're watching the war flick, and we're watching the war, you know, and we're having a few drinks. And now the next morning, I'm going to get on an airplane. I'm going to go where I was assigned, which was in on a mountain 6 miles north of Da Nang. So I flew to a bunch of places and ended up at Da Nang Air Base, caught a truck, and went up to the mountain, checked in with the commander, reported in, and gave him my orders and stuff like that. And we had a little chat, welcome aboard, that kind of thing. And it is customary in the Air Force to volunteer for additional duty assignments. And, you know, there's something you don't want. You don't want to be the mortuary officer in Vietnam, you know, where you bag the bodies. You know, nobody wants that, but somebody's got to do it. That's not a good reason to volunteer. If you get what you volunteered for and you didn't volunteer for mortuary, you won't get mortuary because you'll be busy doing something else. Anyway, I volunteered to be intel officer because I've been doing intel before in my famous escapade with the Bay Bridge Tunnel. And I figured if I want somebody looking out for my butt in the combat zone, it might as well be me. So I'm going to be the intel officer. So we had a squadron in these old French barracks. And the thing is, part of the squadron did the regular business of an Air Force squadron, combat reporting center, control and reporting center. And so they controlled airplanes, and they did tanker hookups, and they did search and rescue. They did all those kinds of normal things alongside the Vietnamese Air Force, because it's their country, and they have an Air Force. And we're training them how to do this. So in that part of our squadron, they had their building, they had their radars, and they had 2 subordinate units. The Pleiku was one of them, and the other one was on the DMZ at Dong Ha. So that's what they do. And they have the Vietnamese sitting next to them on these scopes. And while we're controlling it, we're teaching them what to do it. Or maybe next time they'll do it, and we'll just kind of keep an eye on them, help them out if they need it. Or if they do a good job, great. That's where we go, waiting for our clearance to come in. So we're sitting there, and we're all trained to do that. We know how to do it. So then the day comes when my clearance comes in, I get to go over to where we're going to be doing Tactical Air Control Center, North Sector, TACC, North Sector, which is to say we were the battle staff for North Vietnam and Laos, Barrel Roll, Steel Tiger, and Rolling Thunder. So we have a battle commander, and we've got his staff, and then I'm the senior director, and then we've got a weapons director, and we've got a surveillance person, we've got computer guys, and that's our part of the squadron. We're all top secret, special intelligence cleared. So we go in through our green door to our building next door, brought to you by the Air Force Hammer School, and all the guys in the other part of the squadron are not allowed in there. What do you do behind that door? I can't tell you. Well, why not? I'm a lieutenant, you're a lieutenant. You don't have a need to know. Well, I'm as good an American as you are. Yeah, I know, but we can't tell you. And it's because of sources and methods. If you got a little tipsy one night, had one drink too much, and you said something, and you didn't even know you were saying it, you're going to get a lot of people killed, and we're going to lose that technique or that source, that method is going to go away. So you just don't get a chance to know. This is your war, do it. This is my war, I'll do it. And then everybody's had additional duty, so I was the intel officer too. So senior director of ops and intel. And as the intel officer, I got a really great NCO. This guy's a tech sergeant. He had a truck. He had a bunch of guns, and we would go out, and then I would show him what we're really going to do. Because the previous intel officer, I don't even know if people knew his name. I mean, I never met him, but so he didn't train me, But I said, the first thing is, we are surrounded by North Vietnamese infantry divisions, and we are surrounded by the United States Marine Corps. So I'm going to make friends with the Marines. So I went over to 3rd Marine Amphibious Headquarters, 3rd MAF. You got to go through Da Nang. You got to get off our mountain, and you got to go down to the bridge, go through the city of Da Nang, and then you go through past the base and around the base and through Dog Patch, which is like a slum for the Vietnamese. That's real. And then you go out on the hill where the Marines headquarters is. And they had a thing. It was like 3rd Marine Amphibious Force, Da Nang, Metropolitan Da Nang Security Council, something like that. It was a good name at the time anyway. And they have a 3-star Marine general. And we had General Cushman, and we had another general. Can't recall right now. But anyway, and one of his intel staff had the same thing, where they would have a bunch of people doing their intel as Marines, getting Marine information. I may have been the only guy at the table that had an SI clearance. I don't know, but we're not talking SI at the table. We're talking, who did you meet in the jungle last night? And when is he and his brother going to come and attack us? Because these are Marines, and they're talking about 2 things, basically. Rocket attacks. Da Nang is called Rocket City for a reason. They have 140 millimeter Soviet rockets and 122 millimeter Soviet rockets. And they put them on a stick. They hook up wires to a car battery. That sucker goes off, and they don't know where it's coming down. Somewhere near the airplanes, high tech. So, but it is powerful enough to pick up an F4 and spin it in the air and have it come down in a pool of napalm. That's what we're fighting over there. These guys have really good combat techniques and weapons that work for them and that hurt us. So I'm with 3rd Marine Amphibious Force doing that, and I'm trying to get information from the Marines about, are we going to be attacked? If the North Vietnamese ever knew what we had on that mountain, they'd have hit us as soon as they could, because we were able to bomb downtown Hanoi if we wanted to, but we did not want to hit casualties. Civilians. We got a steel mill about 9 times. We're trying to get a bridge about 20 times. We're bombing strategic targets to help them fight the war. And we hit the army barracks because we kill their soldiers every chance we get. At any rate, that was one thing I did as an intel officer. It hadn't been done before, but it was really good. And I helped them out, so it was quid pro quo. Then the other thing I did was, it occurred to me that the Air Force has like an FBI, and it's called the OSI, Office of Special Intelligence, Special Investigations. I misspoke. Office of Special Investigations. It's like the FBI. They look into drug cases. They look into theft of weapons, any number of things that might interest the FBI. This is our equivalent in the Air Force. But when you're in combat zone, they also do intel. And if some guy wanted to steal some weapons and sell them to the Vietnamese, they'd be on that as a theft case. But in the process, they would get really good intel. So I ingratiated myself to one of those guys, and he invited me down to their villa, and they live downtown. And they don't have any base security. They live downtown in a villa. And there's, I guess, 3 or 4 guys doing that. So Tech Sergeant Heck, my guy, my NCO, and I get in the truck. We drive down there, and we have breakfast with them. This little Vietnamese kid, he's probably about 11, brings us in a big platter, all this delicious fruit. I never had that fruit. It was wonderful fruit. It's all native to Vietnam. It's what the Vietnamese eat, and it was great. And meanwhile, he goes away, and in comes one of the OSI guys. He's probably an Air Force 4-striper, 5-striper, or something like that. It might be a lieutenant. Anyway, he brings in a person, and this is a Viet Cong. And he sits down, and we start to talk and share some fruit, drink some coffee, talk, listen, talk, take notes. And he's talking about the such and such a unit I know them, but I'm just being quiet because I'm a guest. And those guys know exactly what to do. They don't need me, but they're sharing, and that's the important thing. So now I take that back, and I have a very strong belief that every soul in that Air Force squadron has the same right to know something that's going to keep them alive in a combat zone. So I started a thing, the weekly intel briefing. I go to the theater, and you guys are too young to know about 12 O'Clock High during World War II. This was a great movie production, and it was 8th Air Force was in England, and they were going to go fly into Germany and bomb the Germans. And then every mission starts out where they turn a mug around on the mantle, and if the mug is turned a certain way, that means tomorrow we have a mission. So at 0600, you're in the base theater, and the commander and the ops officer and the weather officer and everybody gets up there, and the intel officer, and they brief you because you're air crew and you're going to go fly. So I remembered that from being a kid, seeing that on TV. So yeah, I did that. And the theater was packed. And these guys, it's their life. They want to know. So you mean if I go down to China Beach, I got to be careful because there's Viet Cong there? That's a Marine base. I said, yeah, they're here, they're there, they're there, they're there. And over here, they got a division. Over here, they got a battalion. They got 3,000 over here. And I'm telling these guys the facts of life. And they appreciate it. Next.
So how long were you doing this duty?
From day one. When the commander knew I wanted to be the intel officer, and he, have you done that before? Yes, I had a NORAD. He said, but you've done it. Have you been to school? Well, as a matter of fact, I went to a short-term 1-week school. So, yeah, I know how to do intel. I can do it. Yeah. So from day one, I was doing intel and my ops thing. Getting back to your question about volunteering or something, we're sitting there in the ops center. Everybody's doing their thing. It's around midnight, and the phone rings, and it's secure phone. And it's the duty officer in the ops center at Commander-in-Chief, PACAF, Pacific Air Force in Hawaii. And he says, Monkey Mountain, yes. Need a volunteer. Okay, for what? I said, can't tell you. He said, the volunteer has to be lieutenant or above. He has to be a senior weapons controller. He has to have an SI clearance. He has to know how to fight with fighters and so on and so on. And he has to be available tomorrow morning. I said, okay, I'll do it. And he said, and I need 2 of them. I said, oh, okay, hang on a minute. And I yelled across the room, really across the room is maybe from here to that wall, to my best friend. We've been best friends for a year and a half, something like that. And now we're maybe 6, 7. We're, I think, 7 months into our tour in Vietnam. I said, hey, Bobby, you want to go flying tomorrow? He says, yeah, where are we going? I said, I don't know. He said, what are we going to do? I said, I don't know. He said, when do we leave? I said, first thing in the morning. They'll meet us at base ops at noon, but we got to go see the commander and get permission. He said, oh, you going? I said, oh, yeah, you're my deputy. Okay. And that was it. And I tell the guy in Hawaii, I said, you got 2 guys, and here's the names and all that. We'll be at base ops. So we go to base ops. Well, we tell the commander that we're leaving. He gives us the verbal order to do that. They'll cut the orders for us later. So we grab a bag, overnight bag kind of thing, and we're at base ops, and we're looking around for somebody who's supposed to be finding us. And in walks an NCO, and he says, and he's in flying suit. And he said, you Peterson? Yep. And he said, come with me. Hey, Bob, come with me. So we go out there on the tarmac, and there's an airplane. I know that airplane. It's an EC-121D College Eye Task Force out of Korat. And they fly up to Haiphong, and they orbit from about 7 in the morning till almost noon, come back to Da Nang, get lunch, refuel, and go back up, and that's where we're going. Bright intel officer there. So we get on board, and first thing is we're dying of heat. It's hot in Vietnam, but in an airplane that's turned off while you're doing things like refueling, it's 140 degrees on the tarmac. So we got black, tarmac. And the airplane's all closed up, and it's top secret inside. It's not SI, it's top secret. So we get on board, and they said, "You're the weapons director." Okay, so I go over to that console and sit down. Bobby finds a seat in the rear somewhere, and we've got a set of orders. So we open up the orders. It says, "You are hereby the project director for Rivet Gym." I'm not sure what a Rivet Gym is, but now I own it. Okay, do this and this and this and this and this, and then meet somebody at Karat, Royal Thai Air Force Base tonight. Okay, and they'll be expecting you, and they'll have more information. Okay, so now we fly up to off High Falling in northern Tonkin Gulf, and we do the Alpha Night Strike. All our fighters are going in, F-105s, shooting up a steel mill or whatever it was that day, and the fighters are doing MiGs and SAMs are going off and stuff like that. We turn around, everything's done. We fly back down, and you get to Da Nang, you cut across you cut across South Vietnam to Laos, cut across there, and then cut across Thailand, about halfway, and there's Karat Air Base, Royal Thai Air Force Base. So we land, and then we have to debrief the mission. And now it is 8 p.m., and I'm still waiting to see my contact on the other end, because I know what I have to do. And I go to see my guy, and he finds me, and then he takes me over to a van, and just this dorky little van out there. Wouldn't know what it was if somebody didn't tell you. So I go inside, and they check my ID and all that stuff. And I got Bobby with me, and we're going to figure out what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. Well, what we're going to do is, for the first time ever, we're going to put special intelligence, signals intelligence, through my ear. While I look at his radar, I'm getting SIGINT in my ear, and anything I got to tell the senior director, who's the mission director over there, I tell him, and he tells the pilot. If MiGs are coming after us, which happens, we never saw a SAM because we're flying in northern Laos. But if you ever learn about, well, you'll learn on Saturday about Command and Club, but we flew 30 miles south of Lima Site 85. And we flew parallel to the border of Laos and Vietnam, North Vietnam. And they could knock us down anytime they wanted, but they didn't do it. One time they tried, but I saw them coming. I knew who they were. MiG out of VIN, shouldn't have been in VIN in the first place. So that's a special mission, or he wouldn't be there. And I saw his course, and because I'm a weapons controller, I think in 3 dimensions. I see his MiG coming across the southern part of the radar scope. And if you extrapolate our course, he's going to intercept us. He's going to shoot us down. So I told the mission director there, we got a MiG on us. And he said, "Where? I don't see it." I said, "There." "You know that's a MiG?" "Absolutely." "Okay." He didn't ask me how I knew, but I knew. He tells the pilot. The pilot does a 180, and I said, "Get across the Mekong." That's all I can tell. And so the MiG is coming after us, and we're going down, and I'm praying that we can get some more speed. And this one NCO leans over, and he said, "What's the matter?" I said, "Well, I'm not sure you understand what's happening here, but this," and I look at this guy, "that's a MiG, and he's coming for us." And he said, "Well, we're going as fast as we can go." I said, "Well, what are we doing?" He said, 180 knots. I said, "Well, he's probably doing 380, 400. This is dangerous." And he said, "Well, we can't go any faster." I said, "What happens if we go faster?" He said, "We're going to dive now, and we're going at max RPMs." He said, "Well, we'll do the Connie Clap." I said, "What is a Connie Clap?" The nickname of that airplane is the Super G Constellation, okay, and they call it Connie. The Connie Clap is when the wings go like that, and you die. So if you hit 186 knots, I understand that's the number. Now, the pilot is approaching this. He's doing all he can. What saved us was this offset, the fact that we picked him up so early. If we hadn't seen him give him another 20 miles or 30 miles, he'd have been on us, like white on rice. So we got out of there, and it worked. But that's the thing about volunteering. You never know what you're getting into. And for the rest of my life, because I did that, I got a reputation for knowing how to use SIGINT in a tactical way to save lives and kill the enemy using our resources better than they are ever used before. And when I ended up at NSA, that's precisely what we did.
Before we get into that, why don't we just finish up? So, where were you when the war ended?
When the war ended, 1973 is when we pulled out. 1975 is when it ended. In 1975, well, I'll have to back up a little bit. I was a squadron commander in Homestead Air Force Base, and I had a SIGINT squadron. And that squadron, I was the operations officer first, and then I became the commander. And we had a ground unit out in the Everglades, and that was Army, Navy, and Air Force. The Navy owned the building, and I was a tenant, and then they were a tenant of Homestead Air Force Base. So that's convoluted, but that's the way it was. Then I had another detachment down at next door to Key West at Boca Chica Key. The guys at Key West had VHF equipment, and they intercepted information from Cuba, normally fighters that are airborne, things like that, training missions and some. But that was their mission down in Key West, Boca Chica. And then the guys in Card Sound in the Everglades area, they could do the entire world. Now they had special missions that they focused on, and then everybody's reporting this back to the Pentagon, back to everybody who needs to know it, including the White House, National Security Council. Depends on what it is. And then I had, at Homestead, I had a C-130. And C-130, we had, part of our squadron was airborne guys, and they would fly down to Cuba every day, and they'd just go back and forth around the island. And then the Cubies would come out to try and shoot them down and chase them off, and so we'd have to evade and get away. And we had fighters at Naval Air Station Key West that if we needed help, they could get there and help us out. So that was a good job, and I was loving that job. And living in Homestead, Florida is a wonderful place. I mean, Miami, you know. Anyway, the commanding general of Security Service, which is the Air Force Special it's the SIGINT Cryptologic Agency, Service Cryptologic Agency is the correct phrasing there. He's the commander, and he's an Air Force 2-star general. And he came to visit us one day, sort of unannounced, and we went to dinner, he and I, and a new guy that had appeared out of nowhere. He just was assigned to us, and made him the ops officer. He outranked me, but I made him the ops officer, and I kept command. He didn't want command. He was afraid of command. I said, "Are you kidding me? You know, command is better than sex. There is nothing better than command." And my wife and I, and Detman and his wife, and the general were at dinner. And the general, we order him, the general at the club, you know, and the general says, "Well, Bill, you're not going to like this." I knew I had done nothing wrong. So what in the world could this be? He said, "You're leaving. You're going on a new assignment." And my wife just heard me moan, you know. And I said, "Well, I respectfully decline. I like my job. You know I'm doing all right." He said, "Yeah, we know that." He said, "No, but we want you to go to the Pentagon, to the Air Staff." So I can't, are we sure? He's the new commander, and you're leaving. And just before I said, "Yes, sir," I said, "But he doesn't want to be commander." I don't owe him anything, you know, he's new, chicken. So anyway, and the general said, "Yeah, I got it, you're going." So I went to the Air Staff, and I don't even know really what an Air Staff is. But I get up there, and this is headquarters, United States Air Force. And my part of that was I was assigned to Assistant Chief of Staff / Intel. Now, this is a good job. What exactly am I going to do for the Chief of Intel for the Air Force? You're going to be assigned to Fort Meade. I thought it was in the Pentagon. Well, you are. We have offices in the Pentagon, and we have one office at Fort Meade, and that's called Special Research Division. And when you get there, they'll tell you what you're going to do. Okay, so we went out to SRD, Special Research Division, and it's in the headquarters of NSA building. And it turns out they made me a Russian analyst. Okay, so I'm now a Russian analyst. And I got good at it because they put me in charge of Russian air defense. And I know air defense. I know air offense too. But now I'm going to be the world's most informed guy on a thing called PVO Strani, which is Homeland Air Defense. And so I start teaching myself how to read Russian, and I'm getting there all the intel documents, and I'm getting there all the SI stuff. I'm getting, in those days, we had other high-flying things that nobody knew about. We got all of that. I mean, we got it all in one office. We were all source, put it together. So now I'm writing what amounts to today would be a blog, but these are highly professional things. So I'm writing everything there is to know about what happened in the air defense world in Russia today, or the entire Soviet Union and Warsaw Pact. And I'm doing that, and I'm getting a pretty good rep for it. And that was 1971, 2, 3 in that area. And then they put me on the National Intelligence Estimates. And these are headed by CIA. And then you've got the Army, Navy, Air Force, State Department contributing. And you have a topic. And our topic was prospects for thermonuclear war with the Soviet Union. And if we do, you tell us what to expect for their air defenses, and you tell us about what they're going to do with the bombers, and so we all contribute, and then you get this document that goes to the president and National Security Council and places like that. If you don't agree with something, you put a footnote in there. Air Force disagrees with State Department on such and such, because those guys don't know shit about combat, whatever. So that is where I was until 1975, which was your question. And at that point, I was selected for a postgraduate intelligence course to get a Master of Science in MSSI, Master of Science in Strategic Intelligence. And I specialized in Russian studies. So I went there. That's the same location as, in those days, it was at Anacostia Naval Air Station. Kind of the piss, but it's where it was. And that's on the Potomac River, just south of Washington, and then in Maryland. And then today, I think they've moved it over to where the War College is, and pretty nice. But anyway, we learned a lot, and we taught other people things that we knew, and we were all good at what we did. And then we had very special speakers. One example, the chief of operations for CIA comes in and gives us the whole morning, Another guy is from the State Department on Russia. Another guy is a negotiator with the Russians for arms control. He just came in from negotiating, and in 2 weeks he'll be back negotiating, and now he's telling us how to do it. And I mean, it's Sierra Hotel stuff. Good school. So you want to graduate as high in class as you can, and so on. So anyway, I played a little game at that school too. Partway, towards about 2/3 of the way through school, you have to go do some intelligence thing, because you're all intelligence officers and they want to see you. And then they lay out the ground rules. You have to sign this release. You will not do anything that will get you arrested. You don't do anything that's going to embarrass the service. You cannot leave these parameters, and you can't do this and that and so on. I said, why go? I said, the hell with that. So I got my good buddy who was not in the school to come join me, because he was a U.S. Army captain, and he was an MP, but I mean significantly higher than at a base MP. He was a staff officer at 1st Army Headquarters, and every time we wanted to play sports, I would teach him tennis. He'd never played tennis. I'm telling you, within 1 week, he's beating me, and I'm teaching him, and I'm good, and he's beating me. And it went that way, one thing after another. And he and I are best friends. So I said, look, I'm going to go do something, and I want you to come with me. Okay, what are we going to do? I said, we're going to take my sailboat out on Chesapeake Bay. And it's a 23-footer, sleeps 5, and we've got a great, and I know how to sail. I sailed the Atlantic Ocean, by the way. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to attack the Naval Air Station, communications station. We're going to go in there, and we're going to investigate every approach that would make for a successful attack to deny them communications. Now, this is the tower that got Admiral Byrd's word from the South Pole. This is a special place in the heart of the Navy. It's at the Naval Academy. And it's the golf course, and there's all kinds of admirals walking around. And security police and stuff like that. So John and I, we penetrated that. And we took camera pictures. And by the way, there's an anchorage outside Annapolis where freighters and tankers and so on going into Baltimore, they'll be there. But every once in a while, depending on the academy school year, you'll see submarines come in. You'll see maybe smaller boats, destroyer escorts, something like that. So the cadets get the touchy-feely thing. So on this day, we have now gone in. We have now attacked the Navy secure communications antenna system at their antenna farm. All that stuff, all the means to get in and get out, and writing up exactly how to do it. And then, just for grins, we went within a little bit, let's say, just to be honest, let's say twice the width of this room here, of that submarine. And some of the guys were on deck, and we're waving them. Hi, how you doing? Hi, And John is down below. Now, I had one other guy I took with me, the three of us, okay? And this guy was in our class. And he was a UMint officer. His specialty is getting in and out of tight places with other people. So during the war, what did you do in the war, Daddy? He worked on the docks in southern Thailand. And he would, have fun at Pattaya Beach. And he met a lot of Russians. And he offloaded a lot of cargo. And that's what he did. He was a spook on the dock. And like he was, this your basic grungy guy, and he was an Air Force captain. So I took him with me, and he is an expert photographer. That's part of what they do. And he's down below on the submarine. I mean, the letters on this, we're right up there, And guys are waving at us, we're waving at them. And we're getting the conning tower, we're getting the length, the breadth, the beam, the fins in the back. I mean, it's wonderful. I put this all together in a report, and I submit it. Now, the guy you submit this to, the instructor at Defense Intelligence School, was a Marine major. This is the guy who ordered you to get flu shots. And we said, hell no. I don't want to get that shot. I don't like that shot. So he would have your rank if you disobeyed him, but there's some things that he just can't go. So I got him on the flu shot, but now I'm submitting this paper where we're not allowed to go anywhere. He's a Marine major, and he's expecting something, And he looks at it, he says, oh, geez. And he takes it to the Navy captain. and I understand that the commander of the security towers out there, the radio towers, got fired because of our report, as he should have been, because it was a piece of cake. Anyway, that's apocryphal. I don't know that for a fact. I heard that. I tend to believe it because I know what I wrote. And then there's pictures of the submarine that iced it. That tells you date and time, because it was only in port for a little bit, so that has to be the real stuff, and the towers and the guy wires. Oh, yeah. Okay.
So, after doing all this, how was it, or when you left the Air Command and you started doing the intel school with the So what was your next step after that? Let's start.
Next step. Okay. So now I have finished postgraduate intelligence school. So you're supposed to get a good assignment. And I'd always put in for Germany, and I wanted, if I could, go behind the lines, do whatever. But what I got was operations at NSA. Now, I had been in the NSA headquarters building at that point for 4.5 years. So I knew all of those, got a lot of them. Because when you're on the air staff, you have to work together. They need what I've got and so forth. So, and I need what they've got. So I got assigned over there to an organization called V5, which didn't exist. But a new guy, very important, smart guy, civilian, NSA guy, created this office. And he had heard what so many people had heard was that there's this, what we call the green door syndrome. And some of our operations take place behind closed doors. And sometimes those doors are colored green. And our badge is green. If you're fully cleared, it's green. If you are a customer, it's yellow. And then there's a couple other colors. But you're either a getter or a user, the two most important. So now I was trading in my yellow user badge as air staff and getting a green badge as a producer of intelligence. I just didn't know exactly what it was going to be till I showed up for work. And this thing was military support, no, NSA support to military operations. I said, okay, and what's that? He said, well, we're not going to do the green door anymore. What we're going to do is we're going to bypass all the major intel centers like European Command, big deal. The big intelligence center, we're not going to talk to them. They're not going to talk to us. They're not even going to know about us. And we're going to go to other places, same way, where they have a big head, we're going to bypass that. What we're going to do is when we go to Europe, we're going to go to USAFE, U.S. Air Forces Europe, because they shoot weapons. They have airplanes. They have guns. They do that. And we don't care about writing staff papers and writing reports. What we care about is getting what that shooter needs when the war starts. On day one, he's got it. And day two, and day three, and day four. And if he needs more, we get him more. We know exactly what he needs for him to do his job. And for the first time, we're going to let him tell us what he wants and when he wants it and how he can get it, because they don't all have the same comms. So we list all his requirements, and then we go into the SIGINT world, which is extremely high-tech, very, very difficult to do SIGINT. And we tell our best collectors, this is what we need, and this is how fast we need it. Figure out how you can do it. So then they go into the enemy and break that all down. And then we actually are able to do that. So we wrote a study on how we're going to fight the war in Germany. And then we wrote another one, how we're going to fight the war in Korea. I hope you're reading it tonight. And that's what we were doing in that office. And it was just amazing when you bypass the formal intelligence community and actually work hand in glove with shooters, and they love you for it. So we did that. That's what I was doing on that 121. When I volunteered to go fly, and I'm flying in northern Laos, and I'm getting the enemy information in my ear and telling him what it means. And it goes from normal, if that was a report, that would be top secret SI. When I tell it to him, it's unclassified. It went through my brain and out the other side, and boom, he's got it, and we used it, and we're done. So this was a great thing. Oh, I lasted about 6 or 7 months there, something like that, 5 or 6 months. And I was going down to a place called Eglin Air Force Base, Field Number 9, which is Hurlburt Field. This is where the spook stuff happens. And I'm down there with counterinsurgency people, and we're down there, how we're going to fight the war. And I'm doing that thing, getting rid of the green door and showing these guys who are going to be in places like Bosnia or whatever, how we're going to help them. And then at the end of each week, I would file a summary report with my boss through SecureCom. And at the end of Fridays, on the way to the O Club, I'd stop by a phone booth and I'd make a phone call to my boss and say, I'm off to the club. Is there any last minute thing I need to know about? Because otherwise, log me off for a weekend. I'm going fishing. He says, yeah, we want you back here Monday morning, 8 o'clock. Why? He says, because you're not working for me anymore. What? You're not working for me. You got a new job. I don't want a new job. I've got a great job. How many times does this happen? It always happens, I no sooner get really into it, I'm loving it, and I got to go somewhere else. I said, so who's this lucky dude? He said, Admiral Bob Inman, Director of NSA, has selected you to be his rep to the Air Force. So you are now NSA Rep Defense for Air Force Matters. See him Monday morning, 8 o'clock. Okay. So I went there, and I reported in, and it was wonderful, and Admiral Inman was an absolute god of intelligence. And he got along with people. He graduated from the University of Texas at age 19. People in the Navy, when he was making admiral ahead of time, didn't like him much. He was a smart-ass guy. Well, he wasn't. He was just bright. And he didn't suffer fools. And he wanted things done. And he wanted you to be smart enough to tell him when he needed something he didn't have. And all that kind of stuff. So to get to work for him, it's an incredible honor. So I became that guy. NSA Rep Defense for Air Force Matters. Means anything the Air Force needs from the world of SIGINT, they go to me. I go get it. Because I know that world. I get it. And I do it as fast as I can, as completely as I can. I take it down there and I hand carry it to them and give it to them. If the NSA wants something from the Air Force, like, can we borrow an airplane for a weekend? Or, can we put an antenna on top of such and such a building? Anything like that. I hear what they want and I go see if we can get it. So, and a lot of brokering back and forth. And, we'll get you this thing there, but, you got to help us on this other thing. Well, we can't do that. Well, okay, and then we work on things that we can and can't do. And it's really good. Great job. And then I'm gonna say this. My better judgment says I shouldn't, but I'm going to anyway. We are now in 1980, and I'm getting a decoration. And it's from the Secretary of Defense. It is Meritorious Service Medal. And the room is the Director's Large Conference Room at NSA. And it's filled, standing room only, elbow to elbow kind of thing. And I'm in there with my wife, my daughter, and my son. He's all dressed up, little suit, And my daughter is 13, I think it was, and he was 7. They were born the same day, 6 years apart, within 5 minutes of each other. Military discipline. I needed that extra bedroom, see, in that base housing, Anyway, so they're all there, and in walks the director and the deputy director, Miss Ann Cara Christie, a dynamite woman. She's deputy director at the time. And so they come in, they've got the awards. You've seen the folders and stuff like that, and the medal, and Admiral Inman. Everybody snaps to attention, and Admiral Inman says seats, and everybody can sit down. And he said, I'm going to say at the outset, Major Peterson, now Lieutenant Colonel Peterson, selectee, but Major Peterson is going to be getting an award today, and I will guarantee you there are not 5 people in this room who are cleared to know why and what it was. And he did it, and you didn't know. Oh, that one. So he goes over and they read the citation, and it's all the other stuff, But he's looking at me and says, we know. And so we go ahead and we do that thing. And I'm trying to, we'll save that for a little bit. I'm going to think that over a little bit. But anyway, then we go on, and the next thing that happens is we're into 1980, and I'm selected to be the operations officer for Berlin. Berlin is the premier station of all SIGINT in the Western world. You're 110 miles behind the lines. You're surrounded by the Germans, the Russians, the Bulgarians, you name it, they're all there. They're trying to get in your knickers, you're getting in their knickers. And it's a great assignment. At that time, you had 2,800 enlisted men working for you. 2,800 spooks. It's a big deal. And there's a couple of different locations. And then typically the way it works is if you're the operations officer and you do a good job, and you do what you're supposed to do, maybe do a little bit more, you generally become the commander. And the commander's a full colonel. So within about 3 years, I would go from lieutenant colonel at 14 years, 8 months, real early, to full colonel. And that would mean after I'm doing that job for a while, typically you come back to the States and you go to the War College. And you would either go to the War College or the Navy War College or the Air Force or the Army War College. And then the next thing that happens is you get a really great assignment. And now you are being looked at for a star. And generally speaking, you will get that star and a second star. A third star is a little hard. And in the intelligence world, it's almost impossible to get one or two. But if you get two, you have a real good shot at getting three. Because now you're going to be director or deputy director of DIA or NSA or a deputy director of CIA, something like that.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but just let you know we got about 5 minutes left.
Okay. So now we have a situation where, it's going to be the greatest thing in the world. And the intelligence business is filled with really spooky things that they're legal, they're important, national security depends on it. But we do have oversight, and we have a reason for having congressional and Senate oversight committees, and they must do their job, and you have to live up to that. Well, I found in a briefing to go to Berlin, I found out that one of the guys, a high-ranking Air Force officer, had done something that was very wrong. And I heard that briefing. Two guys were going to brief me. One guy, when he figured out what the next briefing was going to be, chickened out. He left. He was not going to be responsible for telling me. I'm going to be the ops officer. I'm going to be doing this in a couple of weeks, 2 weeks. So the other guy told me what it was, and I didn't say a word. I just listened. And then I said goodbye, and I flew back from Texas to Fort Meade. And then I made an appointment that night at BWI. I'm coming in the airport, and I phoned over to the duty center, and I said, "It's Bill Peterson. I need an appointment with the admiral first thing in the morning." Got it. So went home, went to bed, got up early the next day, went over to see Admiral Inman, and I explained to him what that briefing was about. And he turned in his chair and he hollered past me out into the outer office. He said, "Ellie, get me Lou Allen." Now, Lou Allen is Chief of Staff of the Air Force. And Lou Allen was previously the director of NSA. And Lou Allen is, he knows everything about nuclear physics. I mean, the guy is just phenomenal. So now he's the Air Force Chief of Staff. Inman gets him on the phone, puts him on speaker, and he says, "General," he said, "Lou," and they say, "Hey, how you doing, Bob? How's it going?" He says, "Yeah, I got news for you. Bill Peterson just came in and gave me a briefing. You need to hear this." He said, "Here's what happened." And he named the name, which I'm not going to do for posterity. He named the name, and he told the general what I told him. And the general said, "He's done it again," which means he wanted me to know that this wasn't the first time. And this, my understanding is it's the third time that he violated not only Air Force regulations, but defense SecDef regulations and the Congress of the United States, including the Senate. And he got a foreign country to pay for something they wouldn't put in the budget. And the general, the Chief of Staff of the Air Force, had him fired, but he couldn't do it immediately. And it took about 2 years, believe it or not. I couldn't believe that, but it did. It took 2 years. It cost that guy his third star. He was going to be the next director of NSA. He was gone from the Air Force.
Wow.
Now, he got back at me because he had people in places where he could get me. And Admiral Inman, his next thing, he was selected by President Reagan to be Chief of Staff, to be Director of CIA. So from Director of NSA to Director of CIA. And he looked at me and he says, "If you're out of the Air Force, I want you to be my executive at CIA." And I said, "You got it." Then Reagan selected Bill Casey and changed his mind about Inman, made Inman deputy director. And everybody wanted Inman, and almost nobody wanted Casey. But Casey is good for certain things, without question. And he also put up the money to get Reagan elected as the finance director of his campaign. Anyway, that's how that all worked. And it turns out I left the Air Force in 1980.
Wow. Well, unfortunately, I'm going to have to stop you there. We're up on our time.
That's okay.
But this has been a great and interesting story. I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview,
Yeah.
and thank you for your service.
My pleasure.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.